My wife mocked my job in front of friends, called me a regular office drone. A week later, she found me in a luxury car with her best friend. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The evening started like any other dinner party at our place. Elise had invited 6 people over, the usual crowd from her yoga studio and book club. I'd spent the afternoon cleaning while she directed operations from the couch, scrolling through her phone with that focused intensity she reserved for social media and text conversations she thought I couldn't see. "Elias, the wine glasses are on the wrong shelf," she said without looking up. "We've lived here 7 years. You'd think you'd remember." I moved the glasses, said nothing. That's what worked best these days. By 8 o'clock, our living room buzzed with conversation. Celine Ashcroft arrived last, as always, wearing something expensive and laughing before she'd even crossed the threshold. She'd been Elise's best friend since college, one of those women who seemed to glide through life collecting admiration like loose change. "Elise, darling, you look incredible," Celine said, air-kissing both cheeks. She glanced at me. "Elias, still doing the corporate thing?" "Still paying the mortgage," I said. Elise laughed too loud at that, the kind of laugh that meant she was already several glasses into the evening, even though the guests had just arrived. I poured drinks, made small talk, listened to Celine describe her recent trip to Tuscany while everyone nodded at the appropriate intervals. The evening followed its predictable rhythm until dessert, when Elise decided to share an observation. "You know what's funny?" she said, her voice carrying across the table with that particular brightness that meant trouble. "Everyone here has done something interesting with their lives. Celine runs her own consulting firm. David just made partner. Even Karen started that catering business." She paused, smiled at me. "And then there's Elias, my husband, the regular office drone." The table went quiet, not uncomfortable quiet, interested quiet, the kind that happens when someone's about to crash and everyone wants to watch. "Elise," I said softly. "What?" "It's true." She turned to Celine. "He processes data reports. That's literally his job description. Data reports." Celine's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Well, someone has to keep the lights on." "Oh, he's very good at keeping lights on," Elise continued, warming to her theme. "Very steady, very reliable. Like a Honda Civic. Not exciting, but it'll get you there." I stood up, started clearing plates. My hands were steady. That surprised me. "Honey, don't be sensitive," Elise called after me. "I'm just being honest. You're always saying we should be honest with each other." I carried the dishes to the kitchen, ran water in the sink. Through the doorway, I could hear the conversation resume, slightly too loud, everyone working to paper over the moment. But I'd noticed something. While Elise was performing her little comedy routine, someone else at the table had been watching me with unusual intensity. Not laughing, not uncomfortable, just watching. Taking notes, almost. Julian Mercer. Celine's date for the evening. I'd met him twice before at gatherings like this. He worked in real estate development, drove a Tesla, wore expensive watches he liked people to notice. The kind of man who shook hands too firmly and made eye contact too long. He'd been watching me with the careful attention of someone studying a rival. That's when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. The rest of the evening passed in soft focus. People left in pairs, thanking us for a lovely time, everyone carefully not mentioning the Honda Civic comment. Celine was the last to leave, hugging Elise at the door while Julian waited by his car. "Call me tomorrow," Celine said. "We'll do lunch." "Definitely," Elise replied. I watched from the kitchen window as Julian opened the car door for Celine, but before he got in, he looked back at our house, at me, specifically. Even from 30 feet away, I could read his expression. Triumph. Elise came back inside, kicked off her heels in the hallway, and headed straight for the bedroom without a word to me. I heard the door close, lock. I stood in our kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes and half-empty wine glasses, and felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. Not heartbreak. That would come later, in private moments when I let it. This was colder, more useful. I'd spent 15 years being reliable, being steady, being the Honda Civic that got us where we needed to go. Maybe it was time to see what else I could be. I started washing dishes, thought about Julian Mercer's expensive watch, his Tesla, his Triumph. Everyone has something to lose. I just needed to figure out what. The next morning, Elise left the house at 9 without saying goodbye. I heard her car start in the driveway, the engine fading as she backed out and drove away. She'd been doing that a lot lately, leaving without explanation, coming back smelling like expensive coffee and making excuses about errands. I'd stopped asking questions weeks ago. Questions made her angry. Silence made her comfortable. I preferred her comfortable. Comfortable people make mistakes. I called in late to work, something I never did. My supervisor, a man named Patterson, who'd been riding a desk for 20 years, barely registered the absence. "Take your time, Vornick. We'll manage." Of course they would. I was a regular office drone, after all. I spent the morning going through our shared calendar, our credit card statements, the receipt drawer in the kitchen where Elise kept her paper trail. She wasn't careful. Why would she be? I was reliable, steady Elias. I processed data reports. I didn't ask questions. The pattern emerged quickly. Every Tuesday and Thursday she had yoga from 11 to 1. Except our credit card showed no charges to the yoga studio on those days. Instead, I found charges to a boutique hotel downtown, the Grandmont. Always the same time block, always the same day of the week. I sat at the kitchen table with the statement spread in front of me and felt that cold thing in my chest expand. She wasn't even trying to hide it. I made coffee, drank it slowly, thought about what comes next. My phone buzzed. Patterson. "Vornick, that Henderson file you wanted access to? Security just approved it. Should be in your inbox." "Thanks," I said. "Don't mention it. You've been putting in good work lately. Might be time we talked about moving you to senior analyst." I hung up and pulled up my work email. The Henderson file wasn't what Patterson thought it was. 6 months ago, I'd filed a routine access request for regional property records as part of a market analysis project. What I actually wanted was something else entirely. Julian Mercer owned 3 properties in the metro area. I'd learned that much from casual conversation at dinner parties. He liked to brag, loved talking about his portfolio, his investments, his eye for undervalued real estate. Now I had addresses. By noon, I was sitting in my car outside the first property, a condo building in the Arts District, recently renovated, probably worth 7 figures. Julian's Tesla was parked in the resident spot, Unit 304, according to the property records. I didn't approach, didn't take pictures, just watched. That's how you learn things, not by confronting, by observing. At 12:45, Elise's car pulled into the visitor parking. She got out wearing yoga pants and a jacket I'd bought her for her birthday. She checked her reflection in the car window, adjusted her hair, and walked toward the building entrance with the confidence of someone who'd made this trip before. She used a key card. Didn't buzz up. I waited 30 minutes. Then I left. On the drive home, I stopped at Roland Kessler's auto shop. Roland had fixed my car 3 times in the past year. Good mechanic, better listener, the kind of man who minded his own business until you needed him not to. "Elias," he said when I walked in, wiping grease off his hands. "Something wrong with the car?" "Car's fine. Wanted to ask you about something else." We went to his office, a cramped space above the garage floor that smelled like motor oil and old coffee. I sat down without being invited. "I need information about a vehicle," I said. "Tesla Model S current year. I have the plate number." Roland studied me for a long moment. "This official business?" "Personal." "Personal how?" "The kind where I'm not asking questions and you're not answering them." He pulled out a notepad. "Write down the plate." I did. "Give me 2 days." he said. And Elias, whatever you're planning, make sure it's worth it. It will be. I went home. Elise was already there, fresh from her yoga session that left no trace of exercise. She was in good spirits, humming in the kitchen while she made a salad neither of us would eat. "You're home early," she said without turning around. "Slow day." "You should take more slow days. You're always so tense." I poured myself water, watched her move around our kitchen like she owned it, like she hadn't just spent 2 hours in another man's bed. "Celine called," she continued. "We're having lunch tomorrow. She wants to talk about her business expansion." "Sounds nice. You should do something tomorrow too. Get out. See friends." "I don't have friends," I said. She laughed. "That's not true. Name one." She paused, thought about it. Couldn't. "Well," she said finally, "maybe you should work on that." That night, I lay in bed next to her, listening to her breathe. She fell asleep quickly, the way people do when they're not carrying guilt. Around 2 a.m, her phone lit up on the nightstand. A text message. I didn't need to read it to know who it was from, but I read it anyway. "Tomorrow? Same time?" Her response came 3 minutes later, though she never stirred. "Can't wait." I put the phone back, stared at the ceiling. Julian Mercer had made a mistake. He'd looked at me with triumph in his eyes, marking his territory like some kind of alpha primate. That was careless. That was arrogant. That was going to be expensive. 2 days later, Roland called. "Found your information," he said. "Tesla's leased, not owned. Contract's up in 6 months. Vehicle history shows 3 previous owners, all short-term. This guy cycles through cars like underwear." "Anything else?" "Registration address matches a condo downtown. Parking spots assigned. No security cameras in that section of the garage. Building had them installed wrong. Blind spot between pillars 7 and 9. "How do you know that?" "Because I know things. Are we done?" "Almost. One more thing. What's the most expensive part to replace on a Tesla?" Roland was quiet for a moment. "Battery pack. 40 grand. Easy. Maybe more if it's been compromised in a way that voids the warranty." "How would someone compromise it?" "I'm not answering that question, Elias." "I understand." "No," Roland said. "I don't think you do. Whatever you're planning, you're crossing a line. Make sure you can live on the other side." I hung up. I could live on the other side just fine. I started following him on Thursday morning. Not closely. Not obviously. Just close enough to learn his patterns, his habits, the small vulnerabilities that every person carries, whether they know it or not. Julian Mercer woke up early. Left his condo at 6:30. Stopped at an upscale coffee shop where the barista knew his order, then drove to his office in the financial district. He parked in the executive garage, used the elevator to the 14th floor, emerged at 6:15 in the evening, loosened his tie in the elevator, and drove home. Tuesdays and Thursdays, he made a detour. On Thursday, I followed him to the Grandmont, watched him park in the visitor section, check his reflection in the rearview mirror, and walk inside with the easy confidence of a man who'd never been held accountable for anything. My wife arrived 20 minutes later. I sat in my car across the street and made calculations. The affair had been going on for months, maybe longer. The hotel charges went back to February, and it was now September. 7 months of my wife walking into another man's apartment, another man's bed, while I processed data reports and kept the lights on. 7 months of being the punchline to a joke I didn't know I was part of. I drove to Roland's shop. "I need a favor," I said. He looked up from the engine he was working on. "No." "You haven't heard what I'm asking." "Don't need to. The answer's no." I waited. Roland sighed, put down his wrench, and walked over to where I was standing. "Look," he said, "I don't know what happened between you and whoever you're tracking, and I don't want to know, but I can see where this is going. And I'm telling you, as someone who's seen this story before, it doesn't end well." "I'm not asking you to do anything," I said. just to look the other way for an evening. Look the other way while what? While I have a conversation with someone. Roland studied me. That's all? A conversation? That's all? He didn't believe me. I could see it in his face, but he nodded anyway. I'll be working late on Saturday, he said. Shop will be closed, but I'll be in the back. If someone needed to borrow tools, I might not notice. Appreciated. Elias, he called as I was leaving. Whatever you're planning, leave your phone at home. Cameras everywhere these days. Saturday night, I drove to Julian's building. The parking garage was exactly as Roland described it. Blind spot between pillars 7 and 9. No cameras, no witnesses, just concrete and shadows and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Julian's Tesla sat in its assigned spot, gleaming under the overhead lights like a trophy. I parked 3 spaces away, waited. He arrived at 11:30, pulling in from his evening wherever he'd been. Probably the Grandmont again. My wife had left the house at 9, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. He got out of the Tesla, locked it with a beep that echoed off the concrete walls, and headed toward the elevator. I stepped out from between the pillars. Julian, I said. He turned. Didn't recognize me immediately. Then his face registered surprise, then confusion, then something like amusement. Elias, what are you doing here? We need to talk. About what? I closed the distance between us, not threatening, just present. He was taller than me, broader in the shoulders, but he took a step back anyway. About my wife, I said. His face changed. The amusement died. In its place came something calculating. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Yes, you do. Look, man, I think you're confused. I'm not confused. I have credit card statements. Hotel records. I have your address. I have your schedule. I have everything. He straightened up, tried to reclaim his height advantage. So what? You're going to threaten me in a parking garage. You're going to what? Fight me? No, I said. I'm not going to fight you. I turned and walked back to my car, reached into the trunk, pulled out the tire iron Roland had left on his workbench, exactly where he'd told me not to look for it. Julian's eyes went wide. Wait, he said. Wait, hold on. I didn't approach him, just held the tire iron loosely at my side. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to end whatever this is with my wife, tonight, right now. You're going to tell her you made a mistake, that you can't do this anymore, and you're going to make sure she understands it's over. Okay, he said quickly. Okay, yes, I'll do that. And you're going to stop answering her calls, her texts. If you see her in public, you're going to walk the other way. Sure, absolutely. Because if you don't, I continued, my voice never rising above conversational volume, I'm going to come back here. And next time, I'm not going to be interested in conversation. I could see him calculating, weighing his options, wondering if I was serious. I let him wonder. Then I turned and walked back to my car, put the tire iron in the trunk, got in, started the engine. Julian stood frozen by his Tesla, watching me leave. I drove home slowly. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from something else, something that felt dangerously close to satisfaction. Elise was already in bed when I got back, pretending to be asleep. I lay down next to her, stared at the ceiling. I'd crossed Roland's line, stepped into territory I'd never imagined for myself, and the strangest thing was how easy it had felt, how right. Around 3 a.m, Elise's phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. She got up, took it to the bathroom. I heard the door close, heard her voice through the wall, muffled but angry. When she came back to bed, she didn't say anything. But I knew what had happened. Julian had kept his word. The next morning, Elise was different, quieter, distracted. She sat at the kitchen table with her coffee, staring at nothing, her phone face down beside her plate. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, she said. Just tired. I poured myself coffee, watched her out of the corner of my eye. She looked like someone who'd just lost something important. Good. That afternoon, Roland called. Did you do what I think you did? I had a conversation, I said. That all? That's all? Good. He paused. Elias, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to listen. What you did last night, that was the warning shot. That's as far as this should go. You scared him. You made your point. Now you walk away. And if I can't, then you're not the person I thought you were. He hung up. I sat in my car outside my office building, watching people walk past on their lunch breaks. Normal people, living normal lives, making normal mistakes. I'd been one of them once, but that person had been mocked at his own dinner table, compared to a Honda Civic, turned into a punchline while his wife planned her next hotel visit. That person was gone, and I wasn't sure I wanted him back. That evening, Elise's phone rang. Celine. I heard pieces of the conversation from the living room. No, I haven't heard from him, Elise said. He won't return my calls. Pause. I don't know what happened. He just said it was over. Pause. No, he wouldn't say why. I walked into the kitchen. Elise looked up at me, guilt flickering across her face before she could hide it. I should go, she told Celine. Talk later. She hung up. We looked at each other. Trouble? I asked. No, she said. Just friend drama. Anything I can help with? You? She almost laughed. No, this is outside your area of expertise. I nodded. Went back to the living room. That's when I knew the warning shot hadn't been enough, because Elise didn't think I was capable of understanding her world, her problems, her betrayals. She thought I was still the Honda Civic. Reliable, steady, boring. She had no idea what I'd become, or what I was planning to do next. The luxury car appeared in our driveway on a Wednesday afternoon, a Mercedes S-Class, pearl white, leather interior. The kind of car that turns heads in our middle-class neighborhood, where most driveways held sensible sedans and crossover SUVs. Eliza returned home after running errands and stood frozen in the driveway, staring into space. I was sitting in the driver's seat, waiting. She walked over slowly, confused, and I rolled down the window. Elias, whose car is this? Test drive, I said. Dealership's letting me take it for the afternoon. Want to go for a ride? Since when are you buying a Mercedes? Since I got promoted to senior analyst. Patterson approved it this morning. 12% raise. Thought maybe it was time to upgrade from the Honda Civic. I watched her face as the implications landed. The mockery she'd made at the dinner party. The joke that wasn't funny anymore. That's great, she said carefully. Congratulations. Get in, I said. Let's celebrate. She hesitated, then walked around to the passenger side. I drove us downtown, letting the engine purr beneath the hood, the suspension smooth on the city streets. Elise kept glancing at me, trying to figure something out. Where are we going? She asked. Thought we'd grab lunch at that place you like, the one near Celine's office. Her face went pale, just slightly, just enough. I'm not really hungry, she said. Come on, we're celebrating. I pulled into a parking spot on Main Street, right in front of a cafe with outdoor seating. Lunch crowd in full swing, maximum visibility. That's when Celine appeared. She was walking out of the cafe with a to-go order, laughing at something on her phone. She looked up, saw the Mercedes, saw me, saw Elise. Her face went through several expressions very quickly. Celine, I called, waving. Perfect timing. She walked over slowly, her heels clicking on the pavement. Elias, Elise, this is unexpected. Isn't it? I got out of the car, held the door open. I was just showing Elise my new ride. Well, potential new ride. Test drive. What do you think? Celine looked at the car. At me. At Elise, who hadn't moved from the passenger seat. It's very nice, Celine said carefully. I thought so too. I leaned against the hood, casual. You know, it's funny. Elise made this comment at dinner a few weeks ago about me being a Honda Civic. Reliable but boring. And I thought, you know what? She's right. Time to upgrade. The street suddenly felt very quiet. Anyway, I continued, since we're all here, why don't we grab lunch together? I'm buying. Senior analyst salary and all. I can't, Celine said quickly. I have a meeting. That's too bad, I smiled. How's Julian, by the way? Haven't seen him lately. Celine's face went stiff. He's fine. Is he? I turned to Elise. Honey, didn't you mention something about Julian the other day? Something about him canceling plans? Elise's eyes were locked on mine, and in them I saw the exact moment she understood. I knew. Everything. Elias, she said quietly. Or maybe I'm misremembering, I said. Hard to keep track of everyone's social calendar. Celine backed away from the car. I really need to go. Of course. Tell Julian I said hello. I paused. Oh, and tell him I hope his car situation works out. I heard Teslas can be expensive to maintain. Celine left quickly, practically running down the street. Elise sat motionless in the passenger seat. I got back in the car, started the engine. Where are we going? She asked, her voice barely audible. Home, I said. Where else? The drive back was silent. When we pulled into the driveway, Elise finally spoke. How long have you known? Does it matter? Yes. Long enough? She got out of the car, stood in the driveway, arms crossed over her chest. What are you going to do? About what? About us. I looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman I'd married 15 years ago. This woman who'd stood beside me through promotions and setbacks, good years and hard years. This woman who'd decided somewhere along the way that I wasn't enough, that I was boring, reliable, a punchline. I haven't decided yet, I said. Elias, please, can we talk about this? We are talking. No, I mean really talk. About everything. About what happened. What happened, I repeated. You mean how you've been spending Tuesday and Thursday afternoons at the Grandmont Hotel? Or how you've been seeing Julian Mercer for the past 7 months? Or maybe you mean how you mocked my job at our dinner party while planning your next visit to his condo? She flinched at each detail. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she said. Like what? I never meant to hurt you. Then why did you? She didn't have an answer for that. I returned the Mercedes to the dealership that afternoon. The salesman was disappointed I didn't want to move forward with the purchase. Changed your mind? He asked. Something like that, I said. I drove home in my old sedan, the Honda Civic that got the job done. When I got back, Elise was gone. She'd left a note on the kitchen table. Staying at Celine's tonight. We need time to think. I crumpled the note, threw it away. Time to think. As if time would change anything. That evening, Roland called. Heard you made a scene downtown, he said. News travels fast. Small town mentality in a big city. What were you thinking? I was thinking it was time for my wife to understand I'm not the person she thought I was. And then what? Then whatever comes next. Roland sighed. Elias, listen to me. You're spiraling. I can hear it in your voice. You need to step back, take a breath, and think about what you're actually trying to accomplish here. I'm accomplishing exactly what I want. Which is what? Revenge? Humiliation? You think that's going to make you feel better? I don't know yet, I said honestly. But I'm going to find out. I hung up. The house was quiet, empty. I walked through rooms that suddenly felt unfamiliar, like I was visiting someone else's life. Elise's phone buzzed on the counter. She'd forgotten it in her rush to leave. I picked it up, unlocked it easily. She'd never bothered to change the passcode from the date we got married. The messages from Julian had stopped 2 days after our conversation in the parking garage. But the messages to Celine hadn't. I scrolled through them, months of conversations, plans, secrets, and there, Buried in a thread from February, I found it. The twist I hadn't seen coming. "Do you think he suspects anything?" Elise had written. "No way," Celine replied. "He's too focused on work, too predictable. Honestly, E, I think you're safe." "I hope so. I don't want to hurt him." "Then why are you doing this?" "Because I can't keep pretending I'm satisfied with safe and predictable. I need something more." The conversation continued. Details emerged. Timeline clarified. The affair had started in January, before the dinner party, before the Honda Civic comment. The mockery hadn't caused the affair had caused the mockery. Elise had started sleeping with Julian, and then, emboldened by the secret, by the power it gave her, she'd decided to publicly diminish me, to justify her actions by making me smaller, less worthy. She'd rewritten our marriage in her mind to make herself the protagonist and me the obstacle. I put the phone down, sat in the dark kitchen, processed this new information the way I processed everything, methodically, carefully. The person I'd been would have been devastated by this revelation. The person I was now found it useful, because if the affair had started before the mockery, if it had been going on while she smiled at me over breakfast and asked about my day, if she'd been calculating and deliberate about all of it, then she deserved everything that was coming next. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Vornick?" A woman's voice, professional. "This is Jennifer from Grandmont Hotel Management. We're calling to inform you about some unusual charges on the card ending in 4782. Were you aware of regular room bookings under your name?" I smiled in the darkness. "No," I said. "I wasn't, but I'd like to discuss it. Can you send me a full accounting of all charges?" "Of course. And would you like us to flag this card for potential fraudulent activity?" "Yes," I said. "Please do that." I hung up. The next morning, Elise's phone exploded with notifications. Credit card declined. Account frozen. Bank inquiries. She'd have to explain to the bank why she'd been using our joint card to book hotel rooms. She'd have to provide statements, documentation. She'd have to own it all. I made coffee, watched the sunrise through the kitchen window. Roland was right about one thing. I had crossed a line, but he was wrong about the rest. I could live on this side just fine. Elise came back 2 days later. She walked in without knocking, which was interesting. This was still her house, legally speaking, but something about her posture suggested she no longer felt that way. "We need to talk," she said. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, reviewing documents I'd compiled over the past week. Credit card statements, hotel records, text message logs I'd pulled from her phone before she'd come back for it. Everything organized, everything documented. "Sit down," I said. She sat. "The bank called me," she said. "They're investigating charges. They're asking questions I can't answer without admitting you were using our joint account to fund an affair." Her face went pale. "You reported it?" "I reported unusual charges under my name. I had no idea what they were for. I'm just a regular office drone, remember? I don't pay attention to details." "Elias, please. This is going to destroy me financially. The bank is freezing accounts. They're talking about fraud charges." "Is it fraud?" I asked. "Using someone's money without their knowledge for personal entertainment?" "You're my husband. It was our money." "Was it?" She closed her eyes. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something," I said. "For 15 years, I made myself small for you. I worked jobs I didn't like to pay for things you wanted. I listened to you complain about how boring our life was, how predictable I was, how you needed more excitement. And I told myself it was okay, because that's what marriage was. Compromise. Sacrifice. Elias, but then you decided boring wasn't enough. You decided predictable meant worthless. So you found someone exciting. Someone with a Tesla and expensive watches and a condo downtown. Someone who made you feel special. It wasn't like that. Yes, it was. And you know what's funny? I could have forgiven the affair. People make mistakes. Marriage gets hard. I understand that. I leaned forward. But you mocked me in front of our friends. You made me into a joke. You turned our entire relationship into a comedy routine where I was the punchline. And that's what I can't forgive. Elise was crying now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant... You meant exactly what you said. You meant all of it. I stood up, walked to the kitchen counter, picked up a manila envelope. Julian Mercer's real estate company is being audited, I said. The IRS received an anonymous tip about discrepancies in his property filings, the kind of discrepancies that suggest tax fraud. They're looking at everything now, his business, his properties, his assets. You didn't. I also sent Celine's consulting firm an interesting package. Screenshots of text messages showing she knew about your affair and actively helped conceal it, including messages where she advised you on how to hide charges and delete evidence. Turns out her firm has a strict ethics policy about employees facilitating infidelity, especially when it involves financial impropriety. She'll lose her job. Probably. Elias, this is insane. You can't just destroy people's lives because... Because what? I cut her off. Because my feelings were hurt? Because you made me look foolish? No, this isn't about hurt feelings. This is about consequences. I opened the envelope, pulled out papers. Divorce papers, I said. Already filed. I'm citing adultery, financial infidelity, and emotional abuse. I have documentation for all of it. Credit card statements, hotel records, text messages, and because we live in a state that considers these factors during asset division, I'll likely get significantly more than half. Elise stared at the papers. You planned this. I did. How long? Since the dinner party. Since you made me into the Honda Civic that gets the job done but isn't exciting. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I don't even recognize you. Good, I said. That means I'm finally being honest. She took the papers with shaking hands, read through them. Each page seemed to break something else inside her. Where's Julian now? She asked quietly. Last I heard, he's trying to save his business. The audit's moving fast. Something about finding irregularities with a condo he owns downtown, Unit 304. Apparently, he's been claiming it as a business property for tax purposes while using it for personal recreation. You're going to ruin him. No, his choices are going to ruin him. I'm just accelerating the timeline. The doorbell rang. Elise looked at me. Who's that? Your lawyer, I said. I scheduled a consultation for you. You'll need representation. You called my lawyer? I called a lawyer. Whether you use her is up to you. I walked to the door. Opened it. A woman in a business suit stood on the porch with a briefcase. Mrs. Vornick? Elise stood up slowly, walked to the door like someone in a dream. The lawyer introduced herself, explained the process, gave Elise a card. We should meet tomorrow, the lawyer said. There's a lot to discuss. Elise nodded numbly. The lawyer left. Elise stood in the doorway, holding the card, the divorce papers, the ruins of everything she'd built. I need to get my things, she said. I packed them already. They're in the garage. She turned to look at me. You really did plan everything. I process data reports, I said. That's literally my job description. I'm very good at organizing information. She walked to the garage. I heard her loading boxes into her car. It took 3 trips. When she was done, she came back one last time. I know you won't believe this, she said, but I really did love you once. Maybe, I said, but not enough. She left. I closed the door, stood in my empty house, surrounded by the silence I'd chosen. That evening, Roland called for the last time. Heard your wife moved out, he said. News travels fast. It does in small towns, even big ones. He paused. You did it. You got your revenge. So tell me, Elias, was it worth it? I thought about that question, really considered it. Ask me in a year, I said. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Roland was quiet for a long moment. You know what I think? I think you're going to spend the rest of your life wondering if destroying her was better than letting her go. And I think you already know the answer. Maybe. Maybe isn't good enough. It's going to have to be. I hung up, sat in my living room. The house was exactly the same as it had been a month ago. Same furniture, same photos on the wall, same coffee table with its familiar scratches and water rings. But everything had changed. I wasn't the Honda Civic anymore. Wasn't the reliable office drone who kept his head down and processed data reports while the world happened around him. I was something else now. Something colder. Something deliberate. My phone buzzed. An email from my lawyer. Court date scheduled. Discovery phase proceeding. Everything looks solid, I replied. Good. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, suburban and peaceful. Normal people living normal lives. I used to be one of them, but normal people don't plan revenge with the same precision they use for quarterly reports. Normal people don't systematically dismantle their wife's affair with the careful attention of someone solving a complex puzzle. Normal people forgive, move on, let go. I wasn't normal anymore. The next morning, I drove to work. Patterson met me at my desk with a smile and a handshake. Heard about your divorce, he said. Sorry to hear it. These things happen. They do. But hey, that senior analyst position, it's yours if you want it. You've been doing exceptional work lately. Very detailed, very thorough. I'll take it, I said. Good man. He clapped me on the shoulder. You're going places, Vornick. I sat at my desk, opened my computer, started processing data reports. That's what I did. That's who I was, the regular office drone who kept the lights on. Except now, I knew something else. I knew how to make those lights go out too, and I knew I'd do it again if I had to.